Alrighty, folks. As usual, we are back. I don't even know, like this whole podcast recruitment series has been a whirlwind. I'm doing like 4 interviews a week. It's crazy. So we are back with another one with Beccah Rendall, and we'll get into her story and what she's up to. But so I'm Nicki Fiocco. This is the AmeriCorps Connections podcast. In case you're like, what is this crazy person? Where I guess the hairstyle is to wear buns. And so, anyways, this is where we catch up with AmeriCorps alums and reflect on their service year, and we learn about their twists and their turns and the ups and the downs of a service year. And what's really inspiring to me is like, what are you up to now, and how did your service year impact what you're doing now and the way you see the world? I'm an AmeriCorps alum from Volunteer, Maryland. I did environmental education programs, and honestly, the experience changed my life. And so I wanted to keep these connections going. So I think we're on episode almost 50. Yes, we are like middle-aged, this podcast. We're 1.3 AmeriCorps alumni strong. So I figured I would just continue interviewing people until we had enough followers for the algorithms to be like, yes, AmeriCorps members and alumni are super important. But I'm super excited because we have a special series called the 2024 Recruitment Extravaganza. And this is where I am taking at least 15 programs between now, I'm recording this in May, and July 1st, and I'm highlighting programs. For those of you that don't know, this is really the height of recruitment for programs that do year-round and summer recruitment. And honestly, the hubbub about recruitment over the last couple of years has been kind of down, and finding folks to serve in these really transformational, inspiring programs has been difficult. So I want to do whatever I can to help get the word out. So each week, I don't know when these are coming out. Each time you hear this, we're interviewing a new program and really highlighting the opportunity. And so if you like this program, please share it, like it, subscribe if you're like on YouTube and other things. It really makes a difference. And then if you hear something in this that you're like, oh my gosh, like my niece would be really excited about this program, like send it to your niece or comment in anywhere and tag your niece in it. Okay, I think that's all I need to say. Of course, my two backroom people that are helping me out, Dan Medevere, of course, Time or Money Productions. He was the first one. NCCC, National Civilian Community Corps member, reached out and he was like, I'm gonna put you on all on the podcast platforms. I say this every time. I still don't know what an RSS or ESS feed is. CSS, I don't even know what it is. I don't know what it is, but Dan does. So if you have a podcast or you're thinking about it and you're an AmeriCorps alum, reach out to Dan, Time or Money Productions. And this year, super excited that Do Good, Be Good, Sharon Tewksbury Bloom, and her all AmeriCorps alum staff are supporting this podcast on the back end. So I get to focus on what I do best, which is chat with amazing people like Beccah. And then they do all the editing and they create the posts and they do all kinds of stuff and they share in the newsletters. And it's really, I just am really super grateful and humbled that Sharon sees value in this podcast and that she's willing to put her company behind it. So thank you, Sharon. If you don't know about the Do Good, Be Good folks, check out the show notes. Beccah, you are an AmeriCorps alum and a Peace Corps alum. So we have a couple things to talk about. We can't stay there too long, but I definitely want to orient our audience to understand, like, how the heck did you get yourself into this mess of AmeriCorps? Like, did you do Peace Corps then AmeriCorps then Peace Corps? Like, what's your story? Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, thanks, Nicki, so much for having me on today. I have ended up in a fun national service bubble since I graduated from college. That was not always the plan, but I did Peace Corps and then I did AmeriCorps and then moved on from there. But I actually knew a little bit about AmeriCorps from my mom works for a nonprofit. They had an AmeriCorps program in other states, not where she worked. But then when I was in college, I interned in Indianapolis at the Center for Interfaith Cooperation, which still has a great AmeriCorps program. And so as an intern, they were placing AmeriCorps members in different organizations throughout Indianapolis. So I got to see kind of firsthand what they were doing. I already had a plan at that point. I had already applied for Peace Corps and was already going through the medical clearance, which is not for the faint of heart to do that.
Really?
Oh, it's much more intensive on the front end to get to start Peace Corps, certainly. And I had studied French in high school and college, and so I knew I was wanting to get that international experience. And so went to Peace Corps. I was a public health volunteer in Cameroon in Central Africa, and I learned that I need a lot more structure to my work life than I was afforded in that role. And I also learned that I really missed being near my family. I really thought that the plan for me was going to be an international career. And so as my Peace Corps service was wrapping up in 2017, I was like, I need to be close-ish to my family, namely like not in another country.
Yeah.
And so I started looking for positions. I had a little bit of background in refugee immigrant services, plus a little bit of that French language skill that I could use. But at the time, this would have been middle of 2017, the refugee ceilings had all just been cut. Getting a job, an outright job in refugee immigrant services was so challenging. And so I just started looking. I knew about AmeriCorps. I had a lot of Peace Corps volunteers that had done AmeriCorps. I had that experience in Indianapolis alongside AmeriCorps members as well. And I just went on my AmeriCorps.
MyAmeriCorps.gov? Is that what it is?
.gov, you got it.
.gov. Yeah.
My.AmeriCorps.gov.
Yes.
And I just searched for the word refugee. I searched for the word immigrant, and I just went down the list and applied. I joke with my supervisor still. I do not remember applying to the Kansas City Public Library. I remember my interview, but I had just kind of applied pretty broadly. I wanted to be in the Midwest because my family is in the Midwest, and be a Midwest drivable distance, which is like less than 12 hours away.
Yeah.
For our East Coast folks.
And I did want to circle back on what you said about searching on my.americorps.gov. So folks, in case you missed it, because Beccah was just like, "Ah," she actually put in a keyword of refugees. So you can put in keywords of food scarcity or whatever location. You can put in those types of things and find an opportunity. Like, let's just say you're interested in something, just go to that portal, make a profile, and search and see what's out there. And some of these programs now, because we need members to serve, are paying, not a lot, some are paying for you to move. You know, if you're in Maryland and you want to go out to California, some programs, are paying for your move. But I just wanted to point that out because I thought that was super, super important, that people are like, oh, AmeriCorps volunteering. No, like the world is your oyster with AmeriCorps. So anyways, that was tangent, or like I went on a tangent. So you knew what you were doing. You searched for AmeriCorps. You don't remember applying for the program.
Nope.
But then you got hired. You're like, holy crap, what am I doing?
I will say another just quick tip to throw in here that I give a lot of people interested in AmeriCorps is, if you, as someone who lives in the Kansas City metro, it's not one of the locations, and we're in a two-state area here. So instead of having to go through all of Missouri and Kansas, you can go to AmeriCorps' LinkedIn page and search jobs there. They're going to be those service opportunities, but it does pull from myamericorps.gov. So that is an easy, like, low stakes way if you don't want to go through the whole process before you know, and then you can contact people who are from the programs you're interested in too. So I have found that to be helpful here because of, like you're saying, this is another part where you drive 5 minutes one way and you're in Kansas, 5 minutes the other way, you're in Missouri. But yes, I applied. I did my interview on Skype from Cameroon and figured out the time difference and all of that. And it was a good fit for what I was looking for, really getting into supporting refugees and immigrants as they either get used to a new place, are looking for other ways to thrive in a new place, or are just wanting to better certain skills. And so My family is from Indiana. This is about 10 hours from where my family lives. So I was back in the States for
Yeah, continental US. That works
right.
out.
We're only an hour time difference, so it's all good. I had about 2 months between the end of my Peace Corps service and the beginning of my AmeriCorps. So as a family, we packed up a U-Haul and cobbled together hand-me-down furniture, and I found a roommate in a Facebook group and moved to Kansas City, fully thinking I'd be here for a year and then go back to Indiana and maybe go to grad school or do something else. I'm still here,
Yeah,
6 years
I'm looking at
later.
your LinkedIn. It says Kansas City Public Library, 6 years, 7 months.
Yes. So I did my service with the Kansas City Public Library's Refugee and Immigrant Services and Empowerment, or RISE department, as an AmeriCorps VISTA member is how I did that year. So a year of full-time service, working to build the capacity on that back end. I worked a lot with volunteers. I learned a lot about volunteer management and how to use different online systems and communicate. And then alongside a fellow VISTA, Ian, we started the local English in Action program, which is based on a program out of New York that the English Speaking Union does, which is one-to-one conversation with people who are limited English speakers. Yeah.
I have a question. So this was a program through the library.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of movements. If you're sleeping on your local library, I recommend looking into it because there's our Refugee Immigrant Services program. Really, the VISTA program has helped us prove the need for a
Mm,
lot of initiatives at the library. So that was one that started with a lot of heavy AmeriCorps support. Our community resources department, which works with our patrons experiencing homelessness and other life challenges, trying to find local resources and doing warm handoffs. Our tech access, which works on bridging the digital divide. And then what we call our community specialists. So that's we have a small business and nonprofit, health and well-being, career specialist, and civic engagement specialist. So lots of
wow.
it was initially AmeriCorps folks supporting that. And we also tried things that just for whatever reason don't work in our system here. And AmeriCorps allowed us the space to explore what could this look like, and then actually maybe this is for a different organization, or maybe it's not the time, or maybe this just isn't what the library is for in our community.
That's so,
And then we
oh,
also
go ahead.
used it to expand our summer reading program through the VISTA Summer Associate Program. So we started that in the summer of 2020. So lots of interesting times with that program, and we're transitioning that into a temporary staff program now. So it's been interesting. I've been here just long enough to see those various transitions, and so much of it starting with AmeriCorps.
That's so cool. Amanda McSwine episode, I should have my episodes up. I don't know. Episode 40, I don't know. For in the 40s. Amanda McSwine. So at the end, she gives a massive shout out to her library in Columbia, South Carolina, because she was able to rent a room where she could record the podcast with me. She got all the equipment and it was very clear and crisp. She had great Wi-Fi and everything. And so this doesn't have anything to do with recruitment, but it sounds like the library is a really robust resource. This is Kansas City, Missouri, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So is your particular library supported financially by the local county government, federal, state? Like I don't
Yeah.
know if you know the funding.
You've hit on an interesting topic around library finance. Most public libraries are connected to some other entity, usually a county, city, or school district.
Okay.
We are not. We were initially incorporated as part of the school district, and then in the 1980s, there was a vote to officially separate us. So we are a quasi-governmental entity. We are funded by overwhelming majority by local property tax that are levied
Okay.
by the county government. And then the way we maintain that public connection is through our board of trustees is nominated by local mayors. So we have branches in Kansas City and then in Sugar Creek, Missouri, and Independence, Missouri. So those mayors nominate our board.
And It sounds like your library, and this is not a public announcement for your library, but I just am saying, it sounds like it's a great steward of the community's taxes, where your programming actually builds programs to build the community. Like that's like super rad, and like offers resources to not only just put it back into the community, but build the people of the community to have them be better citizens, whether they stay in the area or not. Sorry, I just had to
Yeah,
notice that.
no,
I
and I
shout
don't
that
know if
out,
this is the
right?
point you want us to transition to
Oh,
our
yeah, let's do
AmeriCorps
that.
program, but that actually we run two AmeriCorps programs now, but exactly what you're saying is the basis of our AmeriCorps VISTA program. So this is going to get a little AmeriCorps lingo-y, but
Hold on, folks. Get your
we
AmeriCorps lingo hat on.
we are an intermediary for AmeriCorps VISTA, so we work with local nonprofits to place people for a year of full-time service to build their capacity to alleviate poverty. So those are all the buzzwords in
Yes.
20
How many
seconds.
partners do you have?
So right now we have, I believe, we have 12 members in service right now through
Okay.
that program.
And for folks, sorry for
Mhm.
constantly interrupting. I should have warned you ahead of time. I'm an interrupter. And so folks that are like, meh, intermediary, what the what? So just what Beccah said, what they do is they hold the AmeriCorps grant. And then what they do is they place members in partnership sites, and they train the members on just probably like small skills, but they're getting the members are getting the skills that they need from their sites. A different model would be like city year. Well, they're also an intermediary. A different model would be like
They're
where you
multi-site, yeah.
what is that?
They're like multi-site because they supervise all their members. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So a different model would be like if I hold a grant and I have AmeriCorps members that are serving my organization, that's different from an intermediary. And I really feel like intermediaries are the ones that can really spread the love. So love this. Okay, going on.
Yeah, and so some of that is we see this as a very deep form of community engagement. We get to support, we focus on small nonprofits. So most of our sites have less than 5 staff. So really trying to
Wow.
build up those local nonprofits to be able to kind of progress to wherever they're wanting to go. And so and we know that people who do a year of service are more likely to maintain civic engagement once they're done with their year of service. So and I cannot tell you the amount of times that I am not from Kansas City, obviously. I moved here and did this, so everything was new and exciting to me. But most of our members are from this area, have grown up here or have lived here a while. And they say, every year I learn something new about where I'm from. I've never been here
Cool.
before. I didn't know about this place. And so there's always some part of your community that you're getting a much deeper exposure to by doing a year of service, in my experience.
Yeah.
And so with those, we have 4 different local organizations that we're recruiting spots for right now. So starting in July and August. And so that's been really exciting to be able to get to know those organizations more, and then also to kind of to see what word of mouth can really do. That's what I was actually hired for. We became an intermediary during my year of service, and then I transitioned into running that without really knowing anything about
Yeah.
federal grant management, and I love a
Same.
policy. so
I
so we're
remember I like, and I'm not afraid to admit this. This is fine because what I do is I find people that know things and I have them help me, or I have them do it. And I remember I had to submit a budget, and I had to go to like, I don't even know what her position was, but I was like, where's my budget? Like, and this was like 2 or 3 months into my directorship with Leadership Maryland. I'm like, I don't know how do I do this? You know what I mean? Like the member management part and the
Mhm.
partnerships and all that stuff, that was like easy peasy pumpkin cheesy. But as soon as I was like, what is egrants? I don't know if I have a login, you know?
Mhm.
And let me just bookmark this because I don't think I can find it again. So God love us all who are put into the position where we're like, what?
And this is where I know on this podcast you talk a lot about how many AmeriCorps members and alums we have and those connections. And it really was another local intermediary, and I cold emailed them and I said, and my roommate at the time was a supervisor in their project and gave me the email of the person who runs their AmeriCorps program. And I was like, hey, I'm new. And they sent me their entire supervisor handbook. They offered to get coffee with me. And now that I'm one of the more seasoned people in this role in this area, it's so rewarding to give that back. And when we have new people come into those roles with our community partners, we're able to really build them up in the way Literacy KC was able to do that for us. And then with our subsites, it's often, I know somebody who's part of your project. Like, can I get a VISTA member at my nonprofit? Like, depending on funds is always our answer.
Right. Yeah.
It's really, you never know who you meet, or if I met someone 3 years ago and now they're in a position to follow up and they do that. It really, things that you kind of put out there in good faith do end up coming back and working out in some way.
Yeah. It's like when we get to see what actual karma happens, right? Like a lot of times we don't get to see the karma where we really want to see it. But then when we put good stuff, you get tenfold back what you put out. So if you get that in your lifetime, you get experience that. That's awesome. Could you talk specifically about, so you're with the Kansas City Public Library, right? Okay. Can you talk specifically about what you're recruiting for now, what the AmeriCorps members will be doing? And then I'm going to ask you to remind you, what's the process of applying and what's the time frame?
Absolutely.
So what specifically are you recruiting for now?
So we have 5 VISTA openings. So those are the ones at those local nonprofits. And they're doing a variety of things, but it's volunteer management and community programming are the 2 kind of major themes. And then we also have a position working on sexual violence prevention and working with the committee here in Kansas City, Missouri on that.
Nice.
And so all of those are, like I said, with local nonprofits. kclibrary.org/AmeriCorps is where you're going to find those. And those have a little bit more flexible start dates for them. You can start June, July, or August, and it's a kind of first come, first serve if you're interested, apply kind of basis. And then our other AmeriCorps program, which is called DigitalCorps, is just here at the library. And so those members will be part-time. So that's going to be, most of those positions will be 15 hours per week starting in September. And those positions are helping our patrons basically with technology questions. So people come into the library with all sorts of reasons. A major one is to use the internet and print, scan, or fax things. And sometimes people don't know how to accomplish whatever the goal they came into the library with is. And so our DigitalCorps members are really there to help, if they just know the answer, to help our patrons learn that, or to help demonstrate troubleshooting or basic computer skills. The story I always tell about this is at our central library, we had a patron come in who had been incarcerated and had been given a laptop and came in and walked up to our DigitalCorps member and said, I was given this laptop, but I don't even know how to turn it on, because they just hadn't used one before. And so they would come back in every week when the DigitalCorps member was there, learn a different thing. First week was turning it on.
That is
and
so
that's great.
Cool. Yeah. How many hours are the DigitalCorps? Can you say that again?
15 hours a week. Yep.
It's for a total of 400?
It's 675 because it's for a whole year. Yep. So those
wow.
Yep. So it's 15 hours a week. And if you do the math, you'll notice it doesn't multiply to 675.
It never does. The math never works out, folks.
We've built in some holidays, and we anticipate someone will be sick, or a family member will be sick during that year, or people need a break or a vacation. So that's built into that 15 hours per week. And so that's going to start in September. I'm not sure when this episode will air, but we'll have the application up by the 1st of June for that. If you're interested, you can always email us at AmeriCorps@kclibrary.org, or I am very findable on LinkedIn. It's Beccah, Beccah Rendall, Rendall. If feel free to send me a message. I'm happy to answer there as well. And we'll also post on our social media when the DigitalCorps application goes live as well.
That sounds like a cool opportunity for a bunch of different groups of people. Like if you're retired and you kind of like know how to do stuff, and for students, because you get a stipend, right?
Yep.
And then after your 15 hours a week for just about a year, you get an education award, right? And so you can use that. And probably all the other benefits. Do these members get like professional development training or anything?
Yeah, there's professional development. There's some of the required pieces, like you'll get your CPR first aid certification paid for and all of that, which is great if you're looking for a job that requires that. And then we do have the great thing about being a library, we got a lot of good free resources, and it can be a little overwhelming at first, but over the course of that year, you'll become very familiar with those resources as you assist people and just being around them. And then we do as needed. So
Yeah.
technology moves pretty quickly. And so when there's things like tax time, we'll have specific resources. When there's new types of scams targeting our patrons, we'll have those sorts of resources. And then a lot of it is really like learning how to have good customer service, good patience, and good troubleshooting skills, which are going to serve you well no matter what job you go to.
Life.
Right. So we also are know that is just part of what's going to be great for our members whenever they transition on from this program.
That's so cool. It's so funny. I think I've done 5 recruitment, maybe 6 recruitment interviews, and I'm like, I want to do this opportunity. It's like like super fun, exciting, super cool stuff. So they would be serving directly with the library.
With
and
the
you said how many
library, one of our
positions? 6,
branches.
7?
We'll have 13 total. So 11 will be doing that, sitting at the computers, helping out patrons. One will be assisting with computer classes and smartphone classes in the community. And then one will be specifically focused on career help working on with our career specialists. So helping people find jobs, prepare for interviews, things like that. Again, if you're someone that is used to going in person and handing in your resume, that job application landscape has changed so much.
Yeah.
And so really, again, a lot of people know how to do it. They just need the encouragement. So that's also part of the roles that a lot of our members fulfill.
That's so cool. I love this. Okay. I think that we got a really clear picture of what's the part-time or smaller time AmeriCorps. So the other group, and that's a full year, is it 1,200 or 1,700?
So that's a full year, and that's VISTA. So again, this is getting a little in the weeds of AmeriCorps, but there's not hour requirements for VISTA.
Okay.
They have to do full-time service for the year. So we consider full-time to be 32 hours per week in our program. And then there's also 80 hours of personal time and 80 hours of medical leave that we very much encourage our VISTA members to use.
Yeah.
And so that would be for a full 365 days for that.
Can I ask you a question about the 80 hours? Is that standard in VISTA? So every VISTA program across the country, 80 days, 80 hours.
Yep.
80 days, 80 hours of sick and 80 hours of personal.
Yeah, it's what's in the handbook is 10 days. So we have translated that to 80 hours just for tracking purposes. Yeah. But yes, that is standard. That is one of the things you'll run into with the AmeriCorps is VISTA as a program is much more standardized across the country. AmeriCorps State is much more flexible. Yeah. So it's always best to ask if you have any questions of the specific program, because they'll be able to tell you the answer or know the people who know the answer. But it can get a little confusing, and it's confusing to everybody. So don't be discouraged by that. It's always better to ask. People want to interact with you and want you to be part of their program.
Yeah. The one thing I always say about like an AmeriCorps service year is like, it's the one, well, I don't know. It's what I know. It's my world, but it's a position where literally as soon as you start working, your entire team supports you on finding another job. It's like so cool. They're like either like courting you to stay and work for that organization, or they're just like your biggest cheerleader fan trying to get you another job. And I love that. Oh, I had a question. What are some of the sites, if you can think off the top of your head, some of the super jazzy sites or not so jazzy that either you're looking for or that historically you place members and that might be available? Maybe
Yeah,
like
so
three.
we have True Light Family Resource Center. So that's a local day shelter for women and children. And then they also are part of our city's emergency plan in the winter, the emergency cold weather plan. So that one is working with volunteers, just a super rad group of people, and they just care a lot about their community. And it's a great way to get into that field if homelessness is something that people are curious about. We have Flourish Furniture Bank, which is the only furniture bank in the Kansas City Metro. So they work with people who've been recently housed. So that could be someone who's been homeless. It could be someone who recently came to this country. It could be someone coming out of a drug treatment program. And so they work with those social service agencies to provide basic furniture and basic kitchen supplies. So that way people aren't sleeping on the floor after they were just housed because
Yep.
they just can't afford the furniture. If you've ever bought furniture, it's not cheap. And so that one is that is just a really unique organization. And then the one I mentioned before with the sexual violence prevention, that's with the Metropolitan Organization to Counter Sexual Assault, or MOXA. If you're in Eastern Kansas or Western Missouri, you're very familiar with MOXA.
Okay.
But it's really working with those community partners. And so that you talk about like helping get jobs, and it's like that network is going to help you. And all of those positions have some sort of networking involved, just built into the design of the
Yeah.
position. And so, and I know from my own service year experience, by the end, there were like 3 or 4 nonprofits we worked with regularly, and I would attend their meetings and show up, and they knew me. And they were like, when you're done with your service, let us know.
Yes.
Like, we'll see if there's a job available. And so there is so much power in building community, and that service here is really a good way to start doing that.
That's so important. And I think I say it every single episode, but like during your service year, meet as many people and create value. Like I don't know where I heard this, but if you can like just show up and like provide value, whatever it might be, whether it's your connections, it doesn't have to be knowledge. Like, don't go in there and be like, I know how to solve your problems. It could be simply like, I think I might know somebody that might know somebody that knows somebody that might be able to help you with what you're doing. And that creates value. And that's the thing that I learned out of my service years. I'll never forget when, during my service year, I spent a year in one park, Quiet Waters Park. And after my service year, I had a few allies. We walked into the director's office and I was like, look, I did this for one park. I want to do it for all the regional parks and your Department of Recreation. And he was like, okay. I was like, okay, that's the easiest job interview I've ever had in my life, right? Like, okay. So they introduced me to the whole department and they're like, it's Nicki, she's a volunteer coordinator. She's going to coordinate volunteers, blah, blah, blah. So I had a recreation manager come up to me and he said, look, we're having a training for coaches in 2 weeks and we need a sign language interpreter, but we can't pay for one. But I was able to pull on my experience as a substitute teacher at a high school where I substituted in an ASL class, American Sign Languaging class. I called the teacher. I'm like, do you know anybody that like has to do service learning hours? And he's like, yes, I do. And I contacted that community college, would put me in contact with somebody that had to do that community service. And the unicorn I delivered on a platter. Not cooked. You know what I mean? And that was all between like, oh my God, oh, I did that person a favor because they had to take off school. I substituted for their class. I did a good job. I need this thing. And, it all fell into place. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without my service year, without everything I learned from AmeriCorps. I'm telling you, folks, if you found this podcast, this means you or somebody in your life needs to serve as an AmeriCorps member for at least a year. Just a year. It's 1 year. Okay. I'm stepping off the soapbox. Beccah, what else do we need to know about your program as we wind down?
Yeah, I think the other kind of plug I'll get in here is that we are part of the planning group for the KC AmeriCorps Alliance as well. Right now, we have a Facebook page and a newsletter. It's facebook.com/KC AmeriCorps. And
That.
so it is, and I pinned the post today about our newsletter in preparation for this interview. And so that is really something, like you're saying, we know that there's such a strong AmeriCorps presence in the Kansas City metro. We also know that there's a major loneliness epidemic, and we're not immune from that. And so how do we create those connections and keep those connections going? And we had a big push during AmeriCorps week and did a few different events, some like learning tour type events, some just more casual like hangout type events. And so that's been a really fruitful project for me. And sometimes we don't get a ton of people, and sometimes we get more, and we're looking to find other ways to kind of pull together all of the deep wealth of like alums we have here and the members currently serving in our metro. And so you're never that far from an AmeriCorps alum.
No, you're not.
So it's always interesting. And we did just have last summer our first AmeriCorps member that I'm aware of that their parent served in AmeriCorps. And so that's been interesting too, to start to see, since AmeriCorps, it's in its 30th year now, to start to see that generational passing along of service. And so again, you never know what your service year is going to lead to, because I'm sure that person's dad didn't think that
Right.
20 years later they'd be encouraging their son to do a summer of service at the library. But those are the stories that kind of stick with me. Or I called one of our members third generation AmeriCorps, because it was like one person did it, then she asked her best friend did it, and then someone she worked with at Starbucks on the weekends did it. And so we really have started to see what that looks like, to have that motivation to serve the community, but maybe not know exactly where to land. And AmeriCorps was where they landed to get that experience. And so we're just grateful for that, and grateful for we've now had over 100 members come through our AmeriCorps programs at the library in the last 9 years. It's just kind of amazing to see what's possible. So it's that's not really about our program as much, but it's just an honor to be able to do this alongside great other AmeriCorps alums that support this program every day.
I think that you summed up an AmeriCorps just experience perfectly. And, if you come to the end of this, and I hope that you have listened all the way through, and you think this could really inspire somebody that's kind of like, maybe they are lonely, maybe they need to get out and do something, really AmeriCorps is like a soft landing. Like, you are thrown into chaos sometimes, but you have support, because that's the way the program is supposed to be. And it sounds like with the Kansas City Library program that you do have the back end support. So if you're in a place where you're like, or somebody, or they're not quite sure what to do, honestly, this is not like a gap year. This is a year of skills building, resource combining, network building opportunity. You're not, it's not a gap year. This is not for the what is it, the soft of heart or something like that, like
the faint of heart.
The faint of heart, right? You're gonna get in there and you're coming out of it. So Beccah, this has been such a great interview, and I really think that if anything, between the two of us, the emotion of like, you gotta do this has really come through. And I love the opportunities, and I'm super digging on all of the resources that the AmeriCorps DigitalCorps could provide folks. Like, and it's also like, it's not just like offering, let me show you how to turn on your computer. it's empowering humans to like do their life, right? And like, if you can be the conduit of somebody who's like, I don't know how to turn my computer on, you teach them how to do that. They turn their computer on and then they do something great. Like, who the frick cares how much you get paid? Like, and I know that won't land well with folks, but like, honestly, like, aren't we all here to like live and love and all that stuff and kumbaya? But, anyways, Beccah, this is wonderful. This was great. If you have been listening to this, please reach out. We'll have all of the links in the show notes. And yeah, we'll be back. I don't know when. I have so many things on the calendar, but we will definitely have another recruitment series guest on the show. And thank you, Rebecca, for what you're doing. Thank you for doing Peace Corps and AmeriCorps. And you're just a light of wonderfulness. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.